This is the France 24 debate. We're looking at Tunisia in turmoil after last Friday's attacks on the U.S. Embassy and an American school, 4 killed there. With us to talk about it, Tunisia, just a reminder, seen as the birthplace of the Arab Spring, where the protests first happened, where the first dictator there was toppled back in early 2011. With us from Tunis, member of the Constituent Assembly, Monsef Sheikh Ruhu is with us. Also with us here in Paris, Adnan Ben Youssef, representative of the Al-Jumhuri Party, the Islamist Ennahda Party. We invited them to take part in the conversation. Again, they did not respond to that invitation. With us, though, is Jalila Hegli-Punier of the Think Ahead for the Med think tank. And joining us from Washington, Steve McInerney of the Project on Middle East Democracy. Just before the break, we heard the tourism minister. Tourism, very much an issue after last year's post-revolution turbulence. Beachgoers from France and elsewhere this summer were back in force. They were hoping even to garner a record number of visitors, 48% jump, as you can see in those statistics from the Tunisian Tourism Ministry. This, of course, Jalili, is not great publicity for your country.
Sure. Well, this is not with the image we fought for a year ago. So yes, actually, we've been seeing since what we call the revolution, series of attacks, of terrorist attacks, and lots of images Tunisia is not used to have to show. So we're trying to the government is trying to avoid socio-economic problems, to tackle the right questions we fought for, we've done the revolution for, by encouraging a base, let's call it a base without any adjective, to do actually to make the show goes elsewhere, to make people see something else, which is not really Tunisia. Tunisia is not intolerance, it's not burning, it's not violation, it's not thief. They are not thieves. The pictures of the thieves going out of the American embassy. It's shameful to the 11 million Tunisians. So it's not our image. So the shock, actually we're shocked. Now I'm shocked because this is not what we dreamt for, and this is not Tunisia. Actually, it's not. That's just a minority, which is seen on the screens all around the world, and to serve an internal political agenda, and masked through and by the Islam, the religion, and instrumentalized to serve its own interests.
Monsef Sheikh Ruhu, we've seen how in Egypt since last week, the government in Cairo has been quick to change its tune, much more forceful in denouncing activists there who seized the American flag atop the embassy in Cairo. Has there been a wake-up call? Have you noticed it among authorities in Tunis?
Absolutely. Not only among the executive branch that we think is still too slow to react as in Egypt, but among the legislative branch. Now, while I'm talking to you, I exited the big chamber where deputies, our congressmen, congresswomen are saying that they cannot agree with what has happened in Tunis. But on the other hand, we are hoping that the Tunisian authorities do their homework and bring in the security that everybody needs. On the other hand, we do expect U.S. authorities, U.S. lawmakers to implement the famous law against those who push towards hatred, because we know that there is religious independence in the United States, but there is no person that is allowed to create hatred and to push towards hatred. And this hatred has to be addressed in the United States so that we do not create hatred against blacks, against Jews, against Arabs, against Hindus, against Tibetans, etc. And this is why each party today has a homework. And we cannot do the homework for the United States, but we can do the homework for our country, for our revolution. We are not happy with what has happened in Tunis. We are asking government to either change its way of treating this, or we will ask the nomination of ministers that are capable of doing the job. Democracy is still advancing in Tunisia. We could not have dreamt of a parliament that asks real questions to ministers. They ask them action, they ask them results, and this is exactly what we are doing now in Tunis. So democracy is underway in Tunisia, and we expect our government to do its share of the work. We hope that our American friends will start doing their share. I just landed in from California, actually. I was invited by the University of California at Berkeley for a Tunisian Revolution series of seminars, and I was so impressed to see that the American people, that the university people, that the intellectuals do have Tunisia in their heart. So if some people that are that are followed by the police because they committed some crimes before, do some hate movies and put them on the internet, I think this should not be allowed in order to break the best interests of the two peoples.
Steve McInerney, what's going to happen to the person who made that movie?
That's hard to say. I mean, I think it's a little early to know. It looks quite likely that the primary filmmaker will face some sort of legal actions and criminal charges. There have been comments by various people, including some of the actors that participated in the film, who didn't understand how the film would be used, or even what the film was about, as many of the lines were dubbed over after the fact. There's a lot of people here in the U.S. very angry toward this filmmaker, including many of the people involved with the project, and there have been lots of statements made about legal action taken against him, and I think it's too early to know exactly how all of that will unfold, but I think certainly he'll face some difficult time. And also it's been mentioned that he's a man that has faced sort of legal difficulties and problems in the past, and was on probation for some charges of fraud in the past as well, which could further complicate his situation.
And once again, no representative of the Long Band and Hada party among our panel. We tried, but the leader of the self-styled moderate Islamist party did speak out in public over the weekend.
Muslims have the right to protest and get angry when their prophet is being insulted. I don't doubt there is a plot against Islam to give it a bad image in the world.
Adnan Ben Youssef, is there a plot against you?
He says all. I think he says that he is afraid to not let the people protest of that film, and that's true in somehow, because there is a complex relationship between the U.S. and the Islamic world about many questions. The war on terror was clearly a big catastrophe, and I think this is the expression of what happened in the whole Islamic and in the whole Arab world is a question of that complex relationship between the Islamic, the Arabic world, and the U.S. And I think that he's expressed that encourages position of saying, actually, we are not going to protect, or we were not able to protect the U.S. embassy because the people were saying that's something which is
so he's
right.
Tacitly condoning.
Exactly.
Is that how you read it, Jalila?
Actually, I want to put this into the context, because now actually it's like something like a new era beginning. Normally in the modern history we saw the clash of civilization paradigm, Huntington's, and then came the war on evil with George Bush, and then
here he's talking about a plot against Islam.
Yeah, and then finally with the Obama speech in Cairo, things calmed down, and then we came to a phase which is cultural dialogue, cultural diversity, and we've been in a good relationship, the West and the Arab world. Now I'm seeing this wave of demonstrations in the Arab world as if it's like a new, I don't know, it's like a beginning of something boiling out and bringing up the crusades and the war on terror and Islam and the West and that conflict. And I'm afraid if we don't...
Who's bringing it up?
Who's bringing it up? That's the question. That's the question that what Mr. Sheikh Ruhu said, everybody should do his homework. So the United States, I think, inside should see who's bringing it up and who has the interest from that. The Arab world at the same time, and both we need to speak as global citizens and try to avoid not to feel in those to fall in those traps again. So that's my analysis of the situation.
Let me ask tell something that the discourse of President Obama, it was under dictatorships, it was under the other world.
2009.
Yes, it was under the other situation. We did not really move from that situation in terms of symbols, in terms of maybe the best discourse could be the one of Obama after the dictatorship was falling down.
But that's the beginning, that's the rapture. I'm
exactly,
referring to that
maybe,
speech, to
but
the Cairo speech, that's the rapture with the
it is not so clear
of
for the people in that region that there is a change of policy.
Tunisian newspaper La Presse has on its website a cartoon captioned, "Washington recalls its personnel," with the comment, "Does that mean all our ministers are going to leave the country?" It sort of shows a general perception that Washington somehow green-lighted the Islamists' ascension to power and that now there's kind of a boomerang effect. Monsef Sheikh Ruhu, a lot of people from the secular wing blame Washington for the fact that there were Salafists in the street running rampant on Friday.
Well, I am from the opposition party, as I told you, the Democratic Bloc, but I don't blame Washington for that. I thank God for that. Because what is happening now in the Tunisian revolution is that Islam and democracy are getting to be compatible. Let me give you one example. When we started writing the new constitution for Tunisia in our assembly, we had a discussion. Some people proposed that the term Sharia should exist in the new constitution. So we had a debate and we explained, Democrats, we explained what does Sharia mean? It's what people vote that is good with your understanding of Islam. Okay, we are going to vote laws. We are in majority Muslims. So what we vote, the laws we vote, the laws voted by a parliament are the Sharia today. So another party had an internal discussion and they voted internally, and 83% of another people internally approved the fact that we do not quote the term Sharia in the constitution because we are voting the laws that are going to allow this country to run. Democracy is advancing very well in our country. We negotiate a lot, we discuss a lot, pedagogy is being used, we belong to the same country. Our children are together, our future is together. So if Washington says, contrarily to Mr. Sarkozy, the former French president, if Washington says in Tunisia, Islam and democracy can be made compatible, we're doing it, while Mr. Sarkozy said, in Tunisia, the choice is being the Taliban and the dictatorship. He never recognized Democrats in Tunisia. Mr. Sarkozy, we exist. We thank God Washington has people who help democracy, and they were not helping only Islamists, they're helping everybody because they are our friends. Now, as I say, to be our friends is to implement the law with regards to everybody, mainly those who could hurt the United States' best interests.
Jalila Hegli-Penier, your thoughts on the United States and the way that, as Steve McInerney described in part one of our discussion, the way they invited the leaders of Ennahda to come to Washington, and should they have put more conditions on the assistance that they've provided to Tunisian democracy?
Normally, conditionality and democracy don't go together. So if we want to assist a democratic transition in a country, you should not normally put your terms. But how shall I answer you for this? It's also it's again a complicated question. It's a complicated question to be.
All right, and one more complicated question before we go.
We should not no condition at all. That's a
normally we shouldn't give conditions. Normally
condition
technical assistance, yes.
Once again, we're talking in the case of hardline Islamists of a small, but as you've seen, vocal minority. So said, by the way, the Tunisian president in a speech on Monday. Monsef Marzouki called for extremists from both sides to be held accountable for the recent flow of violence. Since September 11th, Western and Islamist extremists have managed to pose as the only legitimate guardians of morality and national interests. It is time to deconstruct this narrative. Steve McInerney, what's the lesson you've learned from the events of the past week?
Sure, I'd say a couple of things. One is I would sort of echo the comments by Mr. Monsef Sheikh that we shouldn't lose sight of the tremendous progress that Tunisia's made over the past year and a half to 2 years. Tunisia's state of their political transition and the degree to which this is now being debated and discussed among elected representatives in Tunisia is remarkable progress that they shouldn't be forgotten. On top of that, we've learned this week that the government in Tunisia and the security forces are not as prepared as we would have liked to be able to deal with this situation. And I think Ennahda and some other members of the ruling coalition and the government in Tunisia made some mistakes both politically and sort of technically in dealing with the situation. We hope that this will lead to sort of progress and constructive debate and dialogue and not an escalation to violence in the weeks ahead. But I would caution against sort of abandoning support or hope that Tunisia's political transition will move toward democracy, because I think in the big picture there's a lot of progress that's been made, and hopefully that will resume.
Monsef Sheikh Rouhou, are you expecting to see significant arrests after what happened?
Well, there have been some arrests today, we have been told here in Parliament. We are going to suggest that if Ennahda is not capable of having the right ministers in the interior, in justice, and maybe in some other ministers, then we suggested that they do what they did for the Ministry of Defense, where they have a competent man who is not at all affiliated to any party. So why not envisage a government where people are selected in terms of their capability of managing the department rather than their political affiliation to one party. And this is quite important. Otherwise, I say we are heading towards democracy. And if Ennahda keeps on having those blunders in government in the next elections, my party will be telling the citizen, the voters, well, you better vote for us because we will not do the same blunders.
No,
this is what democracy is about too.
We're going to have to leave it there, but I want to thank you, Monsef Sheikh Rouhou, for joining us from Tunis. I want to thank Steve McInerney for being with us from Washington, and here in the studio, Jalila Heglig-Penier and also Adnan Ben Youssef. Thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.